was very beautiful. Thank you. So I am Taryn, and we are going to start off with some welcoming words from Hannah Roberts Villeneuve. Here we are again. Where exactly? We might not be sure, and why exactly. We might not agree. So let me state what I know with as much certainty as I can muster. We are not here because life is wonderful. We are here because life is exhilarating, heartbreaking, disorienting, soul-shaking. We are not here because these people are easy. We are here because we are most human, most humane. When we have another to hold up in the mirror and show us the entirety of our possibility. We are not here because we have answers. We are here because we are, each of us, lost and found all at once, seeking grace and showing it, finding our way home together. We are not here because we are unafraid. We are here because we have found that there are fears worth facing, risks worth taking, and that we'd rather not face them, that we'd rather not face life alone. So again, I am Taryn, and welcome. And if you are greeted here in the sanctuary by a woodland creature, that one's mine too, Rainier. So welcome, and welcome all Zoomers. So, and it is a big day. It's Super Bowl, so yay. And it's also 2 days away from Valentine's Day. So if you're a fan of football, welcome. If you're just a fan of romance novels, good cheese and chocolates, welcome. And you know, whoever you are welcome here. And so I was like, and oh, it's my first time convening, so there will probably be like lots of need for grace given for any kind of hiccups. So just know that in advance. Okay, so then we are going to do the land acknowledgement for the land that the sanctuary sits on. And so I didn't want to do like a pre-prescribed land acknowledgement, so I did a little bit of just preliminary research on the local area. So the road that we sit on is Zeendale, and I was like, well, I wonder if that's an Indian word, but it's actually kind of not. So it comes from Zeen, which is actually Greek for corn. So it means corn valley. So English dale is valley, so it means corn valley. But 6 miles down the road was a settlement named Zeendale. So that was in 1854 that Zeendale was founded and settled. But just a year earlier, we had kind of evacuated many Missouri tribes onto the local lands here, like pushed them from the east onto Kansas. So we had 20 to 30 tribes plus the 4 that were mainly here. And then they were all rushed down to Oklahoma that very same year. So 1854 was a big year, and we have a lot of history. So if you look back to that time with the history I was at least presented in grade school, it was all about pro-slavery, anti-slavery, and we were known as Bloody Kansas during that 6-year period, 1854 to 1860. But that is big history, and I'm not frowning on that at all, but to move and have that loss of culture and language and the foods that they ate and the land that provided them with all of that was lost to them, and so we acknowledge that here today. Okay, so yeah, I have to take a deep breath for that. So we acknowledge that now, the loss of land, the loss of culture, the loss of family history, family recipes, language, spiritual practices, along with great loss of life. We bring attention to and acknowledge that these 20 to 30 tribes were people and they weren't treated as equals. We see this and acknowledge it because there is work to be done that will help us heal and repair us all. And injustice righted is just called justice. Okay, and now we're going to light the chalice. So I'm going to have, I didn't actually assign a a person, but Pastor Izzo will light the chalice. And our chalice lighting is by Reverend Scott Taylor, who orients us to the theme of this month, which is love. We light this chalice in the names of love. The love of family that brings us into being, allows us to bloom, and sends us on our way with courage, knowing we can return no matter what. The love of partnered hearts that teach us to trust and help. And they help us know that we are who we are does not end at the barrier of our own skin. The love of friends who help us feel seen and sing our song back to us when we cannot hear it in our own ears alone. The love of community that bathes us in belonging and calls us to see the needs of others as our own. And the greatest love, the love that will not let us go, even in our fear, even in our failure, even when we are lonely or lost. Love invites us home. We listen. In doing so, even today, love is calling us home. And we are going to rise if we are able.
Well, let me say a few words about this
sorry.
song.
Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Taryn, for convening. It's really good to have your voice up here and part of the service. So I'm Pastor Isabel Call. It's my honor to serve as the minister here. And in honor of Black History Month, we're going to sing Lift Every Voice and Sing. It was written by the brothers James Weldon Johnson and J. Rosamond Johnson in Florida to celebrate Lincoln's birthday in 1900, and it was sung by 500 children. And here I quote James: "Shortly afterwards, my brother and I moved away from Jacksonville to New York, and the song passed out of our minds. But the school children of Jacksonville kept singing it. They went off to other schools and sang it. They became teachers and taught it to other children. Within 20 years, it was being sung all over the South and in some other parts of the country." Today, when he was writing, the song popularly known as the Negro National Anthem is quite generally used. The lines of this song repay me in an elation, almost of exquisite anguish, whenever I hear them sung by Negro children. So with gratitude for the writers of this song and the people who've kept it alive, let us rise and sing Lift Every Voice and Sing.
Hello, and welcome to the International Space Station. I'm astronaut Kate Rubens, and today we're going to read a book about Rosie Revere, Engineer, by Andrea Beatty and illustrated by David Roberts. This is the story of Rosie Revere, who dreamed of becoming a great engineer. In Lila Greer's classroom at Blue River Creek, young Rosie sat shyly, not daring to speak. But when no one saw her, she peeked in the trash for treasures to add to her engineer's stash. And late at night, Rosie rolled up her sleeves and built in her hideaway under the eaves. Alone in her attic, the moon high above, dear Rosie made gadgets and gizmos she loved. And when she grew sleepy, she hid her machines far under the bed where they'd never be seen. When Rosie was young, she had not been so shy. She worked with her hair swooping over one eye and made fine inventions for uncles and aunts, a hot dog dispenser and helium pants. The uncle she loved most was zookeeper Fred. She made him a hat to keep snakes off his head, from parts of a fan and some cheddar cheese spray, which everyone knows keeps the pythons away. And when it was finished, young Rosie was proud. But Fred slapped his knee and he chuckled out loud. He laughed till he wheezed and his eyes filled with tears, all to the horror of Rosie Revere, who stood there embarrassed, perplexed, and dismayed. She looked at the cheese hat and then looked away. I love it, Fred hooted. Oh, I truly do. But Rosie Revere knew that could not be true. She stuck the cheese hat on the back of her shelf, and after that day, kept her dreams to herself. And that's how it went until one autumn day, her oldest relation showed up for a stay. Her great-great-aunt Rose was a true dynamo who'd worked building airplanes a long time ago. She told Rosie of the tale of things she had done and goals she had checked off her list one by one. She gave a sad smile as she looked to the sky. The only thrill left on my list is to fly. But time never lingers as long as it seems. I'll chalk that one up to an old lady's dreams. That night, as Rosie lay wide-eyed in bed, a daring idea crept into her head. Could she build a gizmo to help her aunt fly? She looked at the cheese hat and said, no, not I. But questions are tricky, and some hold on tight. And this one kept Rosie awake through the night. So when dawn approached and red streaks lit the sky, young Rosie knew just how to make her aunt fly. She worked and she worked till the day was half gone, then hauled her cheese copter out onto the lawn. She gave her invention a test just to see the ridiculous flop that it might turn out to be. Strapped into the cockpit, she flipped on the switch. The helio cheese copter sputtered and twitched. It floated a moment and whirled round and round, then froze for a heartbeat and crashed to the ground. Then Rosie heard laughter and turned round to see the old woman laughing and slapping her knee. She laughed till she wheezed and her eyes filled with tears, all to the horror of Rosie Revere, who thought, oh no, never, Not ever again will I try to build something to sputter or spin, or build with a lever, a switch, or a gear, and I will never be a great engineer. She turned round to leave, but then Great-Great-Aunt Rose grabbed hold of young Rosie and pulled her in close, and hugged her and kissed her and started to cry. You did it! Hooray! It's the perfect first try. This great flop is over. It's time for the next. Young Rosie was baffled, embarrassed, and perplexed. I failed, said dear Rosie. It's just made of trash. Don't you see it? The cheese copter crashed. Yes, said her great aunt, it crashed. That is true. But first, it did just what it needed to do. Before it crashed, Rosie, before that, it flew. Your brilliant first flop was a raging success. Come on, let's get busy, get on to the next. She handed a notebook to Rosie Revere, who smiled at her aunt as it all became clear. Life might have its failures, but this was not it. The only true failure can come if you quit. They worked till the sun sneaked away to its bed. Aunt Rose tied her headscarf around Rosie's head and sent her to sleep with a smile ear to ear, to dream the bold dreams of a great engineer. At Blue River Creek, all the kids in grade 2 build gizmos and gadgets and doohickeys too. With each perfect failure, they all stand and cheer, but none quite as proudly as Rosie Revere. Thanks for joining us today on the International Space Station. We have a lot of engineers working for us, and someday I hope we have Rosie Revere working for us too.
Okay, and that was a beautiful reading of Rosie Revere, Engineer. And it's written by Andrea Beatty and illustrated by David Roberts. So it was really cool. Dan Svensson, we have to thank for that portrayal with the astronaut reading it, which was really cool. So when I was thinking about that story, I was thinking about all the big feelings like that we have in our life. Like I always try to like take those big feelings, like I'm not gonna cry, shove it down. And instead I like just recently, I'm 40, so still learning and growing, but started to kind of personify those feelings and then sit them down on a table in my mind and thank them for being there. Like, what wisdom do you have to share? And then let them on their way. So I do agree, like many times fear shuts down our success or our adventuring, but we can just set it down. Like maybe it's a wise fear that keeps us from doing something dangerous, but maybe it's a fear that's like, oh, well, thank you for trying to protect me, but I don't need it right now. I can go on adventuring because I'm loved. And it's good creativity. So thank you for sharing that story with us. And now all kids are invited to join our religious education classes in the back. So I think everybody's going to gather in the Alsop room first and then be divided into your different sections. So the nursery is always open for our youngest. Soul Kids is for kindergarten through 5th grade. Youth group is for those who are 6th grade and up. And after class is over, we're going to rejoin in the Alsop room for a big potluck. So yay. So we'll start our exit signal for that is go in love. So love, our hearts go with you. Go in joy, our hopes go too. Learn in love and grow in wisdom. Shine your light in all you do. Go in love, our hearts go with you. Go in joy, our hopes go too. Learn in love and grow in wisdom. Shine your light in all you do. Okay, well, thank you. And we are going to have a beautifully played offertory song, and our helping hands is, I was like, I've practiced this in my head many times. I was like, the Kansas Abortion Fund is the February foundation that we're supporting. And I just want us to remember and be mindful of what kind of spirit work they do. So oftentimes our cognitive brain is like run away from awkward conversations or things that we fear are difficult to address. And they do the tough spirit work of going out and facing that pain and awkwardness and do the loving and nurturing. So we can send money in their direction, which is always helpful, or we can sit in just gratitude for the tough spirit work that they do. Or you can share on social media a post that is in support of their great organization. So all of those things are good, but we're gonna sit in our gratitude while we do the offertory. So I also will collect joys and concerns as we do this. And I was like, you can also leave cash back in the offertory envelopes. So there's cute little envelopes. If you want the money to go to UUFM, you can shove it in there instead. So thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Beautiful. We've come to the time in our service when we share our burdens and amplify our celebrations. And I invite Kathy Swenson. Good, you're here, Kathy. She'll be sharing in this with me. So let's call up a spirit of generosity, vulnerability, courage, and compassion as we listen to what has been shared. We have a couple of joys here on Zinedale. Michael Oldfather is 83 years young today. Happy birthday, Michael. You'll have to tell us during the potluck how to do it. How was that done? And today's flyover, the Super Bowl stadium, I don't know who wrote this in. Betty lets us know that the flyover will be done by an all-female crew in recognition of the 50th anniversary of women being permitted to fly in the Air Force. Go ladies! Kathy, are there joys in the Zoom to share?
Yes, there are.
We don't yet hear you, Kathy. Hold on just a second.
I am.
Now we can hear you.
Okay, I did think I unmuted myself, so I don't know what I did wrong. But anyway, I have a couple joys just about the service today. A thank you to Taryn. Emily and Karen said that they just thank you to her, and that her spirit is showing through, and that is just so true. And thank you, Taryn, for being our convener today. And Lester and others, just thank you to Renee for that beautiful piece of music. Thank you so much. So, and for her beautiful playing. Thank you. And that's the joys that I saw at this point. Yeah. And
were there other things people shared?
Oh, there were no sorrows, but I wanted to add a joy about the people that went on Monday for Kifa. We were there representing our fellowship in strength, and we had Stephanie from the Congregational Church join us, and we met other great people there that went to different offices and hearings, and Diane and I had, and Stephanie had the maybe not pleasure, but the opportunity to hear the hearing on the trying to get a grant in, or get a program in that would take away money from public schools and given to private schools. So that is to be watched carefully. That's all for now. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Also, your testimony, it is coming through. I'm so proud of that. Thank you so much for doing that. Testimony against the anti-trans community. The bills against it, going to sending testimony to about the bills that are anti-trans, and very good testimony too. We're very lucky to have you represent us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, there's been a lot of activity in Topeka at the State House. So yeah, it was really exciting to be a part of. I think there were 8 of us here from the fellowship that carpooled out there on Monday. Yeah, it really, it's a joy because it's a sorrow, because we have to do more than vote. We have to show up and remind them that we're here and of our values. So thank you, Kathy. I wanted to share one sorrow, a concern, just sending our love to Stacy Brofman, who's in Albuquerque. She's offering care to both her father and her brother who are having intensive medical issues right now. So sending her our love. Let's join together in a moment of silence for all the activity that brings us joy, that's defending joy, that's witnessing and advocating and being present with people who are suffering. Let's just have some silence and stillness to honor all that. And now we can sing together. I invite you to rise if that feels good in your body. Our world is one world, hymn 134.
Thank you. And so February is the month of love as our main theme. And one of my favorite Love is in the Title books is Love Warrior by Glennon Doyle. So I just kind of like grabbed some thoughts from that book and was going to share those before Pastor Isa gives her reflection. So Glennon is a powerful feminist and very, not loud, but wonderfully awesome lesbian, and a recent convert to that. So she's done it very publicly through books and a podcast and Instagram. So she's very out there in the world. So feel free to look her up. But here are some great quotes. People who are hurting don't need avoiders, protectors, or fixers. What we need are patient, loving witness. People to sit quietly and hold space for them. People to stand and helpful visual to our pain. Maybe instead of slamming the door on pain, we need to throw open the door wide and say, come on in. Sit down with us and don't leave until you have taught us what we need to know. We think our job as humans is to avoid pain. Our job as parents is to protect our children from pain, and our job as friends is to fix each other's pain. Maybe that's why we all feel like failures so often, because we have the wrong job description for love. Life is messy and hard for everybody, And it's not hard because we are doing it wrong. It's just hard because it's designed that way. Because if it weren't hard, we wouldn't need each other. And needing each other is the best part of life. I know my identity now, love warrior. I came from love, and I am love, and I will return to love. Love casts out fear. A person who has recovered their true identity as a love warrior is the most powerful force on earth. All the darkness and shame and pain in the world can't defeat them. We can handle it. We can do hard things because we are love warriors. So, thank you. I'll just, oh, do you want me to transition this? No.
This is good.
Okay. Sorry.
Thank you, Taryn. That was such a good reading. So yeah, love is not easy. People are so people-y. I've been hearing that a lot lately. A lot of people have been telling me that lately. It's hard to be around people sometimes. I hear, though I don't have personal experience, that it's not easy to be married 20 or 40 or 60 years. But I believe it. And it's hard, Glennon Doyle says, because it's supposed to be hard, because we need to need each other. We need the difficulty of love. Reverend Hannah Roberts Villeneuve said in words earlier, because we are most human, most humane when we have another to hold up the mirror and show us the entirety of our possibility. February is this time where that another is often understood to be our beloved, the one we've chosen or who has chosen us. In this month of love, I'm thinking of it broader to include everyone. I identify as a universalist, so it's not just the people I like, who I love. It's everyone I love. Our world is one world, and it's love that holds us together. Thank God, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King pointed out that you don't have to like someone to love them. Jesus said you don't have to like your enemies. You just have to love them. These days, my love is being tested by some of my fellow Kansans. Next week, as we've heard, there will be 3 committee hearings in the state legislature that are attacking trans people. Tomorrow, the House Education Committee will be hearing a bill to discriminate against trans girls playing sports with other girls in public schools. Tuesday, the Senate Public Health and Welfare Committee will hear a bill criminalizing gender-affirming care for people under age 21. And Wednesday, that same committee will hear a bill that defines man and woman. So let me share a few details about these bills. And I'll work my way back to love, because it really needs to be about love. So the first bill is based on an antiquated understanding of sex and gender, which I'll come back to, which forces schools to discriminate against trans girls. There's no evidence that allowing trans girls to compete in girls' sports hurts anyone, but we do know that prohibiting them from playing girls' sports does decrease participation in girls' sports generally. Prohibiting trans girls from playing sports with their friends simply sends a message to all girls that they're not welcome as themselves. It reinforces a culture of gender policing that reverberates through a community, increasing conformity and fear. Yet despite the violence and abuse that trans people endure, many take the risk to live their truth anyway. Trans girls should be seen as role models for the people around them, including us older people who keep our true selves hidden for fear of being judged and bullied. The second bill being considered would criminalize evidence-based, safe, and reversible treatments for trans youth. The American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry all support these treatments. The bill would take away parents' rights to make medical decisions for their children and would take away medical decision-making rights from legal adults age 18 to 21. And it criminalizes providers, and these facts are being misrepresented. So I've sent out my testimony for this bill, and I would love your feedback on it before I submit it this afternoon. So if you're on the UUFM listserv or want to be, let me know. A few days I was getting fired up to write my testimony about in opposition to these bills, and my phone dinged. Someone on a dating app was initiating a conversation with me by complimenting my appearance. So I checked out his profile and I noticed his query to the universe. Are there any good women left? That probably should have been a sign for me. Just walk away. But I was so curious. What do you mean by good women? I asked. Let's back up. So before we talk about good women, maybe we should talk about women. Get a definition here. So according to the third proposed bill, this one is just fun to tear apart. A woman is an individual whose biological reproductive system is developed to produce ova. Men are defined as those whose biological reproductive systems are developed to fertilize ova. Only female individuals, according to the proposed bill, are able to become pregnant, give birth, and breastfeed. So just to be clear, there are two types of people: the ones who make babies, the ones who are made to make babies, and the ones who are made to make the baby makers make babies. It's funny how maleness is defined solely in terms of a woman's body capacity, whereas some people define good women solely in terms of how she treats her man. So I digress. Biological differences between the sexes, the authors write, mean that male individuals are, on average, bigger, stronger, and faster than female individuals. These biological differences leave female individuals more physically vulnerable than male individuals to specific forms of violence, including sexual violence. Because biology has abandoned women to this vulnerability, and because historically they've suffered violence and discrimination because of it, separate facilities are warranted. Because recent policy initiatives are endangering single-sex spaces, we need to get things straight in order to protect women. So the bill is entitled the Women's Bill of Rights. I oppose this effort to give me rights I don't need and never asked for. My testimony takes issue with the claim that biological differences leave women vulnerable and the conclusion that legislature must protect them by enforcing segregation. It's intellectually dishonest. If you're concerned about big, strong people hurting small, weak people, then what are you going to do about the differences between size and strength within the two categories you've manufactured? Maybe the legislators will admit that they're mostly just worried about men hurting women. Great, then let's do something with men about that. Keeping grade school girls who are transgender from playing soccer with other girls is not going to solve that problem. Our so-called leaders often try to solve problems by building walls, categorizing people as either in or out, justifying hatred by professing love for a group they're trying to control. Unitarians, Universalists, and Unitarian Universalists have smelled this dishonesty for centuries. Transylvanian Unitarians 500 years ago passed the first laws to protect people from being cast out of community for their beliefs. In the 19th century, powerful American Congregationalists were shaming others by using the slur Unitarian. That was until William Ellery Channing simply embraced the term. And the Universalists simply refused the idea of hell because they knew it justified hatred in this lifetime. Our spiritual ancestors did not believe in a God who divides their children into groups and rejects those who refuse to choose a category. When our ancestors were bullied into choosing a side, they chose to side with love. And there are so many ways we stay true to this legacy. When we are emotionally blackmailed, told we can maintain our privilege to stay in the in-group or else be outed, we come out. For example, as it's written, the so-called Bill of Women's Rights raises the specter of sexual violence in order to scare people into supporting it. Good women would, of course, be afraid and would be grateful for the protection offered by these legislators. But if we have good community support and don't need to be good women in order to survive, then we can see underneath this ploy. We know that if you truly care about reducing sexual violence, then you'll work to heal toxic masculinity. And we find ways to say this with love. We say no to bad ideas with love. We write love letters in the form of legislative testimonies. And just in case you're wondering, because I was raised in a loving community, a community that loved and tried to love and learned how to love and had trouble loving but kept trying, and I took the UU Our Whole Lives curriculum as a kid, I was able to say a firm no to the guy on the dating app when he failed to listen to anything I had to say. My goodbye love letter was brief. I wish you well. I will keep you in my prayers. And I will. And whenever he and all the others in their self-made category are willing to sit in a circle and work on restoring justice to this hurting world, I'll be here. We'll be here. Meanwhile, we will love those who have been made vulnerable by patriarchy and capitalism and ableism and racism. This community we are making may not be tidy or ordered, but it is great. Coretta Scott King said, "The greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members, a heart of grace and a soul generated by love." So I'm going to invite you to think about the love letters you want to write this month. They could be actual Valentines, and don't worry if they don't make it in time for February 14th. Love doesn't go out of style. Your love letters could also be texts or prayers or thoughts or intentions. They could be postcards to others or post-it notes to yourself. Your love letter could be identifying yourself publicly in a way that makes you a bit vulnerable in order to be true to yourself and make space for others to be themselves. Your love letter could be learning someone's pronouns or their new name and talking about them to yourself or to your friends so you get used to calling them how they want to be called. I challenge you this month to take one action like this and call it a love letter. You can find, I have a reading to inspire you in this. It's a little bit of a longer reading, and it's by the Reverend M. Jade Kaiser, who's the co-director of an organization called Enfleshed. And you can find out more about them and the organization on our website, the page for this service. There's a link to more information about them. Here are their words. Every time the word gay rolls off my tongue, when the words queer or intersex or trans or non-binary or bisexual bless my lips, no matter what I'm talking about, I am also always sending a love letter, casting a lifeline, praying a prayer, and yes, obviously waving a flag. So many generations of silence and slurs, of words of violence and of quiet, lonely. Does anyone else in the world feel this way? My heart could burst every time I speak the imperfect but earnest attempts at finding ways to communicate lineages of us. Every word a reaching toward each other, a "you're not alone," or a "we got each other," and a "isn't it divine being this way?" It's never too early to start teaching this love language and planting these seeds of assurance. Just thinking about it makes me want to sing the whole queer lexicon to the tune of ABCs to every newborn baby. Asexual, bisexual, cops and dykes. Train a child up in the way they should go, says the scriptures, and I want them all to go queerly, go freely, go in belonging. I want us to raise a whole generation of kids who never learn to hate themselves or to treat others like monsters, or that there's anyone even God is against. This is indeed part of my queer agenda, to expose children as early as possible to all the possibilities of their beautiful becoming, to leave no doubt that whichever way their love blossoms and their gender blooms and their body unfurls, they will be protected, cherished, celebrated, loved. In the world as it is, to even begin to balance out all the messages otherwise, these things cannot be said enough. So we say them in every form they take across languages and cultures We say them as early and as often as we can. We say them especially when they're not welcome. We say them with all the love we've got, and we will never, never stop. So thank you, Reverend Jade. We say these messages and we sing them. We sing together to send out and receive love letters, to know each other's minds, to know each other's hearts, to bring each other hope when hope is hard to find. We lift every voice in song as a way to join that rushing eternal river of love carried forward generation to generation, shared across community to community. And so I invite you to rise in body or spirit and sing to hymn 128, For All That Is Our Life. A lot. There we go. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for joining us today, and thank you, Reverend Call, because that was amazing. And it's very near and dear to my heart because I do have 2 trans kids, so I just want to say thank you all for putting up the good fight for us. And we are going to close out and extinguish our chalice with these good intentions going in our heart from Reverend Maureen Killoran. In these hard times, let us look first to the response of love. In the midst of challenge, may our chalice flame bear witness to the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. In the midst of uncertainty, may our chalice be a beacon of encouragement that our values may guide our choices. Let us look first to the response of love. Namaste and blessed be. So don't go far. I have a few announcements. For everybody, including the Zoom folks, I just want to let you know that I will be on study leave for a week starting on Tuesday. So if you want to catch up with me before that, do that today and tomorrow. And then a couple of announcements for the folks here in the sanctuary, and why don't we all send our blessings and send off the Zoom folks. I don't know how many of us they can see, but we'll send you off to conversation with each other.